We are Blake Lovell, Blayne Gilmer, and Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, continuing our series of bold predictions for SEC football teams for the 2023 season. Today, we get to the two-time defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Blayne Gilmer, start with you, your bold predictions for Georgia football for this season.
Yeah, I was like Blake mentioned before we started this, man, this is a tough one to find because anything that Georgia has had on the table to do, they've done the last couple of years. But there are a couple of historic marks there and a couple of things that Georgia just hasn't done in terms of the individual realm that I'm going with. Georgia has only had one 1,000-yard receiver in its entirety of its football history. That is Mr. Terrence Edwards. And I'm going to say that either Ladd McConkey or Dominic Lovett goes over 1,000 yards receiving this year. That's my bold prediction, number one. And number two, Georgia just does not rack up a lot of sacks on an individual basis. I think Robert Beal actually led them in sacks their first national championship 2 years ago, and he ended up being a 6th-round pick, even with all of those studs that they had up there. But Michael Williams is a different story, Chris. I know in our Alabama Bowl predictions, you picked Dallas Turner to lead in sacks. I'm going to say Michael Williams leads the entire SEC in sacks, and that will be quite a feat for a Georgia defense because they don't really necessarily play that kind of style, but I think Michael Williams is that talented, Blake. Or Chris, so we'll go with Chris next. Blake's wanting to go last.
Oh, there's a reason I want to go last. We'll get to it. So
I don't know that you're wrong. I actually had Michael Williams leading the SEC in sacks on my board, but I liked a prediction better than that. And Blayne Gilmer, you were dead wrong.
Oh,
and you're going to wear it when we're done with the season because those guys aren't even going to lead their team in receiving. Brock Bowers is not only going to lead Georgia in receiving yards, he's going to lead the entire SEC in receiving yards. Don't know that that's ever been done by a tight end before. That's how good Brock Bowers is. You said pre-show he's got to get, 1,200 and something yards to become the school's all-time receiving. Heck, why not just throw that in there too? Brock Bowers is going to break every record in sight as he becomes the most dominant tight end maybe in the history of college football. And you're going to be wrong because those guys aren't going to lead their team in receiving.
But just think about that. That is a real – I mean, it's very bold because Georgia hasn't – like I said, they've only had one 1,000-yard receiver even at the receiving position, much less a tight end. They've never had a tight end do it. Even as good as Brock Bowers is, he got close, like 970-something yards last year with a huge game against TCU, and that was with 15 games. But think about it. He is going to be a junior this year, and this is his last season. He has gone to the NFL. He's only going to be a junior, and he can break the all-time receiving record. It is a real possibility with some guys that have been there 4 and 5 years. Crazy, Blake, how talented Brock Bowers is.
Well, and one more thing as an aside, I never would have guessed A.J. Green didn't hit 1,000 yards. Did not know that till you mentioned
that
it.
Suspension,
so there's
that suspension for getting those signed jerseys, NIL before NIL hurt him a little bit.
Good thing he didn't get a tattoo also. Anyway, go ahead, Blake.
All right, well, you guys made this easy on me, and that's why I wanted to go last, because think about everything you two just talked about. And you're talking about all these guys that go off and have big seasons. Well, they're not going to do it running the ball. They're going to do it catching the ball. And somebody's got to throw it to them, and that's going to be none other than Carson Beck. Right now, I don't know how bold this is because I think he's actually going to keep moving up because he's actually moved up a bit, I think, from going back to like May. I'm looking at how the Heisman odds have kind of changed going back, several months. And he's moved up the list a little bit more. He's kind of creeping up there a little bit. But right now, he's at 11th on the current Heisman odds. If you're on DraftKings, you can get him at plus 2,000 right now for your bet. No, I'm not picking Carson Beck to win the Heisman because that would be probably too bold for my liking for this. But I am going to pick him to be a Heisman finalist. And the reason why, just hit the rewind button if you're watching this on a VCR and go back and listen to everything that Chris and Blayne just said the first 4 minutes of this video, because that's the reason is all these guys that he has at his disposal. And there are guys we haven't even mentioned yet that he has that will go off to and have big games. So when you think about everything that's around Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett, we saw him get there. I'm going to pick Carson Beck to get there too, because quite frankly, I didn't have a lot of other options with this Georgia team. I almost said they were going to go undefeated again, but I didn't think that was that bold because they've done it twice now. Who's to say they're not going to do it a third time? So give me Carson Beck for the Heisman.
I was going to say, and Blake, that fits along with some of the videos we've had in the past of this Georgia team. When we talk about, hey, we said this is Georgia's deepest wide receiving core ever. We said this could potentially be Georgia's best defense ever. Both of those things are a quarterback's best friend. So if you have that going for you, it's a good chance he could end up in New York. But I do think it's bold considering he has not officially been named the starter yet. So that is definitely a bold statement there, Blake.
If he's not, take whoever the starter is and just pluck him in here. We'll do some editing.
Right. So well, it won't be Stetson Bennett. But anyway, and if you're watching on a VCR, leave that in the comments because I've got some questions about that.
It's possible. It's technology, man. Come on, 2023.
Yeah.
Tell us your bold prediction in the comments too. Make sure you drop those in there.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to be doing bold predictions for every single SEC team for the football season. Best way to catch those, hit the subscribe button, enable your notifications, hit the like button too. That helps us get noticed, helps us find advertisers, all the things that get us paid and keep us in business. For Blake Lovell and Blayne Gilmer, I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We'll be coming back soon with more SEC football content.